Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. We are so pleased that you are able to join us. We know many of you are having a holiday break. Many of you are ploughing on and working through these holidays. So we hope you get a restful time too. But thank you so much for joining us. We've got people from the US, Cumbria, Canada, Florida, Nottingham. I know we've got people from Finland and Italy as well, just joining us. If you would love to say hello and where you are in the world, please do put that in the chat, because it's so nice for us to see where you are, and we can also give you a shout out. So this webinar is all about creating interactive simulations which are about real world readiness, preparing learners who are in the medical schools for real life situations. And you can't get much heavier than that in terms of the roles that people are going to go and deliver when they leave the medical school. So this is purely about medical schools, healthcare teams, immersive learning. And we are joined by one of the leading universities in the UK who have been happy enough to share all of their resources with everybody. Hi from Mexico and Michigan State University, welcome. As always, you are able to leave your questions, your comments, your ideas. We love the interactions that we get on our webinars, and it's what makes it. So please do put any ideas in, because you might just be thinking of something that somebody else is thinking of and they just don't want to put it in the chat. As always, we have Ivan, who's our wonderful head of support. He's going to be answering your account queries, your ThingLink questions directly in the chat. And you will get an email at the end of the webinar. And we have got the deck, the links, the resources. So you don't need to worry about anything. If you see a link in the chat, we'll make sure that it goes out in the email to you afterwards. So I'm also delighted to be joined by my wonderful colleague, Dee, who's joining us from Colorado. Dee, hey, how are you?
Doing great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on the webinar. If you haven't been on a webinar with me before, just a brief introduction to myself. I'm the Enterprise Account Executive here at ThingLink. I do work with a lot of healthcare customers, and as we know, they've really were kind of the pioneers of starting the simulation-based learning. So I'm super excited to hear everything that the University of Salford is doing and discuss their processes, because I think they're great and are going to be very helpful to a lot of other healthcare industry people, but also I think these use cases can be stretched across other industries as well. So I'm very excited to dive into this.
And you've got a background in psychology and learning as well. You've worked in the industry for many, many years now. So this must be particularly interesting, because the whole way that people engage with learning has changed so much with AI and the importance now of authenticity and real world examples and all of those things.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, like you mentioned, I have a background in industrial organizational psychology, and I've been in L&D for the L&D industry for a little over 5 years now. So with that said, it's going to be really on the focus of how do we engage people? And yes, AI is really shifting that as well.
And we've been hot on the heels of a workshop this afternoon, and it was really cool to have an internal workshop where we've been just making sure we are crystallizing, what ThingLink is. And I know that there are people that know and love ThingLink so much already on the webinar, and of course the webinar team that's joining us shortly from the University of Salford. But there are people joining us who don't know ThingLink, and I think that, if I could find a way of summing it up, it is ThingLink now, just like Canva's done that for many other kind of industries, creative industries. It's democratized. It's made it easy for anyone to create content such as immersive learning assets. We're really disrupting the developers. And I can go a little bit further, and please do chime in, Dee. So it's not just about the creation, is it? It's about how we bring accessible examples and the real world context into digital education.
Yes, and I think if we were talking about democratizing content, think about the way that it typically is used, which is going to be that top-down approach where somebody says, go create this, and you go create. Now we're being able to democratize who's able to create. So it's not just coming from the top as well. It can be bottom-up approach where, you know, even students are coming into the play and saying, hey, I think we should have more content around this piece, and being able to jump into ThingLink and create.
And then the last kind of slide I'm going to put on, which just sums it up so beautifully, and this has come from Ulla Maria Koivala, who is the CEO and founder of ThingLink. And that, you know, I know that people sometimes think of ThingLink from a few years ago, and they say, I know and love ThingLink. I used to use it years ago. It's just brilliant. But I think now it's been demonstrated that not only are ThingLink leading in immersive learning, but it's also thinking about spatial content creation. And I dropped a hint at our last webinar, which is soon the ability to capture 3D objects with your phone and use those in your ThingLink immersive assets as well. So yes, lots of really exciting developments there. Lots of hellos coming through. I just really want to call out, hi Beth, because Beth used to be part of the team at the University of Salford as well. So we just must make sure that we say hi to Beth. So that's enough from us. We really want now to hear from the team, the Learning Technology Enhancement team from the University of Salford. But first of all, I'd really like to bring Bev on. And Bev is the lecturer whose examples we're going to be looking at over the next 40 minutes or so. So Bev, a big welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you, being willing to share your amazing examples with everybody. But I do know that you have, you are a lecturer in radiography and that you have a master's in advanced medical imaging. But please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I am really excited to be here. It's a real honor to be asked to show my little ThingLinks to everybody that, I thought I was doing okay, but, I'm really happy to share those with people and answer any questions about what they want to know about, how I did it or what I was doing. I've been a radiographer for 30 years plus, and I'm still a radiographer. I still practice clinically. But I'm also an academic at the University of Salford, and I lecture, and I love teaching. And I love teaching, but I love teaching not just didactically by PowerPoint or anything like that. I love teaching in as many different ways as I possibly can. So ThingLink for me is a really good tool that I use. I have a lot of interest in simulation and getting these students to really enjoy their time at university and to also make learning enjoyable. That's one thing that I really feel passionate about. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, thanks ever so much, Bev. And one thing that we love about the University of Salford, and I don't know what's happened this week, but I was on a webinar yesterday and there was someone from the University of Salford, and the person that was running the webinar was from the University of Salford as well. So we seem to be raining University of Salford goodies, and I know that you've got some other conferences coming up. But one of the reasons I think it works so well at the University of Salford is because you've got a really passionate learning technology enhancement team that support the lecturers like yourself. And if that's a key ingredient to take away from this webinar today, I think it's that it's such a supportive environment. So I think it's only right now that we bring out some of the members of the LTEC team who can tell us a bit more about the role of the LTEC team and how it supports the work that you do, Bev. So please give a big hand and welcome Manisha Mort to the webinar, and Den, hi, how are you?
Thank you for having us. Excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. I know that we've done webinars before, but I'm amazed every time we get together because there's always something new going on. There's always new experiences. But please do tell us a bit more about yourselves and also the work of the LTEC team, and we'll make sure that everyone gets the links as well. So over to you, Mo. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Of course, thanks, Louise. Hi, everyone. My name is Manisha Maud, or Mo, and I'm a learning technologist based at the University of Salford. And myself and my colleague, Dennis Chambers here, we are both learning technologists, and we work in the Learning and Teaching Enhancement Centre, the LTEC team within the university. So the LTEC team, in a nutshell, is that we're a team of learning technologists and academic developers, and we're really passionate about transforming education through innovation and collaboration. And we try and play a very important role within the university to help enhance teaching and learning experiences for both our staff members and our students. So in particular, myself and Dennis, one of our main jobs is to train our staff members in a lot of the educational technology tools that we have available, that we have licensed to the university. And, you know, I think it's fair to say, Den, that ThingLink is one of our top 3 tools that we use in the university. And we've been using it now for the last couple of years, and we've just seen so many creative things being created by staff and students, because both of those groups have access to them. And it's unbelievable what's been going on, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think ThingLink's been around for a bit, and we have had access to ThingLink and used it, but there's been to see quite a quantum leap in what you can do within that tool. I have been a learning technologist, or worked with it, kind of like teaching technology to academics for a number of years now. And I'm not just saying it because I'm on a ThingLink call, but it's one of those technologies which really does allow you to be incredibly creative, and I don't think we've had anything like that at the university until then, and I think that's why we've got such a great engagement with it. You know, we have simulation suites at the university, but there's quite a lot of kind of like, you know, like coding and technology having to be thrown at that. Now we can turn around to academics and say, if you have an image, if you have a camera, if you have some content you want to share with your students, this is a really simple way to do it. And I found, certainly with, you know, working with academics such as Bev, we just have to give them the basics, just give them the examples of how it can be used, and they will run with it, and they will really take it on and create some incredible things.
Thanks, Den. And there's already been a shout out for the ThingLink, which I know that you were instrumental in supporting, and we've shown that a few times before, and we can show it again shortly. But I'd really like now to focus on some of Bev's amazing examples so people can see this in action. And I think people will really want to know, and please do put your questions in the chat, how do you get started with something like this? You know, what's your kind of planning process? So I'm just going to go back into my presentation here, and we've got, I think it is your first one. Here we go. So it is the radio, oh, it's this one, isn't it? It's the Centre for Medical. Should we start with that one? Is that the best place to start?
Yeah, that is, yes, thank you, Louise. Yeah, that's the first one I created. This was all sort of like part of a perfect storm for me, really. I was interested in simulation, and our very supportive head of simulation, Dr. Leah Green, was saying, you know, we could do virtual simulations when we were trying to think about how we scaled up our simulation offering at the University of Salford, because we do have large cohorts. You know, in the nursing school, we've got like 3 cohorts of 300 people or more. In radiography, we're getting up to 95, and it's all about how to give those students the best experience without limiting their time so much that they can't see anything or do anything. So we were looking at all sorts of ways in which to try and scale up, but keep the experience really good. And at the same time, I then saw an LTEC sort of spotlight, where the LTEC team come and tell us about what new technologies that we've got available to us at the university. And also there was the small issue of the pandemic about how we were going to again deliver great learning experiences to our students, even though they may not necessarily have been on campus. So for me, it was all a sort of like a coming together of everything, where ThingLink just seemed like the perfect answer to the problem that I had, which was trying to get people into simulation, trying to scale it up, and trying to keep the learning experience interesting. We also were blessed with our Centre for Medical Imaging, which you can see here. And this is just like a little hospital, as it were. And you can see there, that's one of the first things that I want the students to look at is the welcome. And we have got a shout out there to our marvelous technician, who is Chris Beaumont, who takes all the images that I want. You know, I'll give him a shopping list of images and I'll say, I want this, this, and this. Could this be 360 degree, please? And he'll go and create the images for me and then bring them back to me. And so our Centre for Medical Imaging is fairly new. And we wanted to be able to give the students a tour, and also other visitors, maybe to the university, a tour, but safely. Because, of course, as we've got a fully functional Centre for Medical Imaging, that does include working X-ray rooms. Okay, so we do have what's called controlled areas within the X-ray rooms. So we've got an added element of safety here, where we need to let students know what's safe and what isn't safe to do in an X-ray department with a working functional set of X-ray rooms. So, you know, it was all together. I thought that a tour using ThingLink, but with the 360 element, so that they could click and they could explore, that would probably be the best way to do it. And I think on this, if we turn around a little bit there, Louise, just, yeah, if we turn back, I think around here on the TV screen there, I think so the first thing I would do there is I put a little video in about radiation protection. So the students were looking at the radiation protection video and learning just a little bit about the basics of radiation protection and what they needed to know. And this gives them the basis for moving on. And the feedback we've got from students generally is that they do like little movies that pop up in the middle of ThingLinks. You know, they do like watching things like that and listening to things. I also tried to make it as inclusive as possible and accessible as possible by putting subtitles on there. So you can make it really quite accessible for students so that they can, you know, even watch it on their phones, on the train, you know, if that's what they want to do, and then they don't have to have the sound up, they can just watch it and read the subtitles as well.
And it's nice that there's different controls in there as well, so people can playback speed, but also they can stop, pause. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to stop videos, look at something else, come back to it. You know, I'm kind of snack on things like that, but also sometimes things make more context when you've gone a bit deeper into the experience. You might want to go back and watch the video as well to see it again. So yeah, you've got all of those controls in there.
I think this is a really great example of using the multimodal information, right? Not only am I in an environment that is a real environment, so I can interact with it, but having those little small stops or even micro learnings like the video elements, you can, I think just from this conversation, can tell how that can increase engagement, because it's not just video after video or just text after text. I have a lot of different pieces of multimodal information to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And that helps keep interest as well, doesn't it? You know, that it's not all the same thing over and over again. And you can choose which way, you know, you want to do this. You can watch the video first, or you can look at something else first, or you can click around. And there's also, as you can see there, what I've done is put an external link to the company that supply our wheelchairs there, our equipment. So if the students want to look further, they can just quickly click through to an external website. No hassle, no fuss at all.
And I noticed that you've got a navigation and key in here as well. And it's interesting, we started at that view, but you could actually set the scene so it starts on this view right away. But this is really well thought out. So we're not just launching people into it. You can actually, understand, but people, I think, pick the icons up quite quickly. But I really love the fact that you've got that navigation there as well. And there's a trophy icon for the final content.
Yeah. I like to that is feedback I've got from students as well, that they like navigation to be quite clear, and that they also like to realize what's the essential core content and what's the stretch content, so that they can choose whether they want to see sort of like the core content only, and if they don't want the extraneous material, perhaps that will, that will be too much noise for them. They just want to concentrate on what they want to know, what they need to know. Then they can do that as well. So navigation aids do help. So here, I don't want them to go any further before they've seen the other part of it. So I say, so I give them a little question, and then I just guide them gently to where I want them to go.
It's so good, Bev. It's just so engaging and well thought out. Just you don't want to go that way, go this way.
Yeah, just so that they don't miss out something, because they may not have realized something that, that has got some essential content in. So again, if I've got a TV screen, I think I've probably put a movie on there again. These are just little PowerPoints where I'm speaking over them. Again, as you can see there, I'm just letting them know one of those key learning points that I wanted to get across, which was what is a controlled area and why should you be aware of it within this environment, so you're safe within that environment before you get in there. So that was another little thing to talk to them about, controlled and supervised areas. And then I think as we're going around, the arrows were where you could go into other rooms, but also pointing out the features of the areas. Yes. So another little movie to say what the protective measures are. And then here we've got something to show you about what things mean. What does a red warning light mean? I've told you what they mean, but what does it look like, so that you can see it and so that you know exactly what you are looking for when you're in the environment. So that was quite good. We managed to get a little teeny sort of like screen grab of a little moving image, but also text at the side of it so that they could read. So again, multimedia go throughout.
Brilliant. And the exposure switch, that's like hitting the big button, isn't it, as well?
Yes.
So you know that you've got to get all of those elements in before the big button's hitting.
Yeah, we don't hit that big button for anything, unless we're absolutely certain that everybody's safe. Yes. So we've got the picture of it, because it's too small to see there in the general image. So that is a really good way of sort of like blowing up the content there so that they can zoom into something that's very important.
I just want to call out Damien. Thank you, Damien, for your comment. I know this is focused on healthcare today, but this is truly inspirational for any organization. Thank you. Thank you. It is totally, you think about onboarding. I know Dee's a specialist on onboarding, but imagine the comfort you would feel if you had this ahead of going into an organization. So you think every hospital should just have this. It's not just about, educating new students. It's about constantly making sure that these assets are available to people as a refresher, for patients, for parents of patients. I always wondered why you got the heavy apron and why they left the room when you had your x-ray. Few broken bones that I wish I didn't have, but it's a whole experience, isn't it, of going in. Dee, I think you're going to come in there.
Yeah, gosh, not only onboarding for this, and again, I know this is a virtual tour, but it's also a learning experience. Think about any type of safety training. I am learning as I'm going, hey, where's my, emergency exit, evacuation procedure, whatever that might be, you can add it to these as well. So again, all different types of use cases can be, can look like this as well.
I think, Den, did you want to come in there as well?
Yeah, just very quickly, another thing that's happened at the university along those similar lines is we teach the police force as well, you know, the police service, and we have a similar environment in ThingLink for the custody suite. Rather than a new police officer, the first experience of a custody suite going into, which is potentially a dangerous place, going to be a lot of things going on where there's going to be prison stuff. We've got a simulation of that again, which is following this very same thing where you go through that route, you see where all the emergency exits are. There's videos showing how people who are in the custody suite are dealt with, you know, like what the custody sergeant is doing. So the comment that was made by Damien about this is across all organizations. Yeah, all the organizations across any kind of like industry, any discipline, something like this can be used.
And there's a really nice comment that's come through from Shorty in Blue. I love how user-friendly ThingLink is. It's made fantastic to create tours at the University of Salford. So I think that must be one of the fellow lecturers there. So Bev, I mean, you can see how much work that's gone into this. And then someone saying how user-friendly it is. I think it'd be really good to get an idea of how this was presented to students, and also what was the kind of the labor involved, the resource that was involved in terms of time and your thinking. I mean, you mentioned a colleague there that helped you with pictures. Yeah. So it'd be really good to get an idea of how this, how does this unfold in terms of how you present it to students, and also what was the kind of resource requirement?
So what I do when I'm presenting these things to students is I generally get them to work in groups of 2 or 3 around one PC. You know, if they're not doing it in their own time, they can do it in their own time. What we can do is we can embed it into our virtual learning environment, which is Blackboard. So we can embed it into there so that they can access it before the session if they so wish. And we can also, in other simulations that I've used, not just this one, the other ones, say the MDT scenario, I had them, groups of students, 2 or 3, sat around a PC and collaborating as a group to talk about the decisions they were going to make, because that was a decision making scenario, a branching scenario that I used. So we would present it either asynchronously or synchronously. Now, in this particular instance, when we were sort of onboarding, some of the students were actually in the X-ray rooms having a look with a tutor, and they were sort of like using the X-ray rooms, and they were learning about them, and they were having a talk about them whilst in the X-ray room. And others were sat around the PCs, and they were looking at it first, and then they would go in. So you can have that sort of thing. It makes things quite flexible if you can work like that. Flexibility is key. One thing that I'd like to pick up on, to go back to sort of like for healthcare environments and things, to use tours beforehand takes away a lot of the anxiety, especially for the neurodiverse or people who are unsure of the surroundings. They get a great comfort in being able to explore something first. That's why Google Street View is so popular. People use it to plan journeys and look at the places they're going to before they get there. So for hospitals, this would be a great pathfinding, wayfinding type of tool, that they could use, I feel, that would make particularly the neurodiverse feel at home. We've also had that feedback from people from simulation. If we're doing immersive simulation, so if we're in the room and we've got role play going on, the students told us that they liked to do a tour beforehand so that they were aware of their environment that they were going to be role playing in. So you can use it that way as well. So asynchronously, as part of the briefing process for simulation, but also as a wayfinding tool. So now we're in the X-ray room. Yes. And you can see our phantoms there, can't you? Those are fabulous, aren't they? Some of my favourite things.
But you make such an important point, because I think we focus on transition quite often in school, making a transition from nursery to primary to secondary school. But actually, kind of thinking about continuing that kind of ethos about transitions and onboarding, whether it's in universities and then within your own course content. And what I'm hearing, Bev, is that whilst this is an asset that can be used for onboarding, can be accessed on a mobile phone, it can be accessed on the PC, work in pairs as well. So it seems like it's not just a training tool in the LMS itself as you work through a course, it's got multiple uses in other places as well. Sophie Holmes has just commented, wonderful work. I'd like to know more about how you embed ThingLink into your content management systems. So I don't know if one of the LTEC team wants to come in here and talk more about how you integrate into your Blackboard. Is that something for Mo or Den?
Yeah, sure. So there's a variety of ways that you can do that. So our main virtual learning environment at the University of Salford is Blackboard, and we do have tools within Blackboard to make it possible to add and embed these ThingLink environments within a Blackboard page, for example, or to add it to the content list. So it is very easy for our staff members to be able to add ThingLinks at certain parts of, the content. If they are talking about radiography, for example, they may want a bit of information, a bit of text, and then have that ThingLink experience at the bottom. So it means that the students don't actually have to navigate away from the VLE in the first place and not getting distracted. They can just focus on staying in that Blackboard environment and immersing themselves in that ThingLink.
I just put on the share dialogue here. So you do get a number of options, and obviously you're using the embed onto the website link as well, which produces the iframe that you mentioned there, Sophie, but you can also share it as a direct link, but the QR code as well, so that you could even have a poster on the wall as you go into the medical imaging centre that people could scan on their mobile phone that would pick it up. But in other ways as well, you can view it in VR. And I don't know if you are using VR headsets at the University of Salford, but has anyone thought about using this in the VR headsets there? I know Bev's, Mo's nodding her head. Mo, do you want to come in there? I know Den's a whiz at this as well.
Yeah, so we've actually invested in purchasing quite a few VR headsets within the LTEC team, just so that we can showcase this feature, particularly within ThingLink. So we do like to demonstrate existing ThingLink projects that some of our staff members have created, for example, and just to show them how easy it is to immerse themselves in that environment. In fact, I think one of our academics who's in the chat, they've actually used it with their students as well to showcase, example, a tour around the lab and to immerse themselves in the environment for away days as well when they go and visit secondary schools. To try and get students to come to university, they've taken those VR headsets with them as well. So it has been really successful so far.
And can I ask what headsets that you're using? Because I know that that comes up sometimes if people want to know how to do that. So is there a particular brand that you're using?
We purchased Meta headsets, and it is just a case of opening up the web browser, going through thinglink.com and putting in the code that's generated when you click on that button. So that's our experience. We do have other Google glasses, and not Google glasses, but other kind of tech that we haven't quite utilized, but it works really well with the Meta headsets.
And I know, Dee, you've done a heap of work on this recently, haven't you? Thinking about, because there's actually apps, isn't there? ThingLink apps that you can use. Specifically, is it with Meta Quest? And then using something like a landing page where you can go directly onto. So this is a landing page that you get with ThingLink, where then in the headset you go to this landing page and you can open up the different types of activities.
Yes, we have native apps in Meta, Pico, and headsets today. So you can utilize a native app to create that type of landing page to deliver the training. So not only you can use the web app, the web with the link directly to it. However, you can also deliver it through that landing page. And
Callum Thompson, we've used it on MetaQuest, but also on the phone app in a holder. So that's the ThingLink in a like the ThingLink iOS or Android app, and it works really well. Thanks for that, Callum. Callum, I know you feature in the EAM example. If we get time, we'll show you in that EAM example. So time is ticking on, and I really would love to show your next example, Bev, because I think what we've seen here is a great example, which is real world context. You haven't got an AI generated environment here. So people are actually going to get to see what they're going to see when they come to the medical imaging centre. So I think that's a really important use case, authentic assets, real world examples. And I think that's something that people really like in a world of AI. So it's not spun up avatars, there is real people behind this, real voices, and even real skeletons in there. And I want to make that point, Den. I know that you had something that you wanted to say around that, because that was feedback, wasn't it, about not using avatars?
Yeah, it came down to, we were talking about different types of media that can be displayed through ThingLink. So, you basically, the world's your oyster. You can put anything you like there. And something that was popular, and it was used in EAM, was having animated AI generated avatars, which is great. And I thought it was, and it's really well received by people. And I think one of the things that really engaged them through a tour of something like EAM, which is historical, it was used also in another project where it was for podiatry and prosthetics and orthotics, and they were user cases. But rather than having the actual people who these prosthetic limbs were being made for, they used avatars because of a safeguarding reason. But we did have feedback from students saying that they didn't like that side of it because they couldn't engage on an emotional level with those AI generated avatars. In EAM, it's an appropriate place because these aren't, there were stories of real people, but there was no way of having them as a video. So people accepted the AI generated avatars for it. When it came to stories of real people alive now, they thought that the AI generated avatars detracted from the emotional response they had about the subject. So it's just something to be aware of when it comes to trying to maybe kind of like using AI avatars, because they're an amazing looking thing and it's really cool and very Gen AI's everywhere. Let's put that in there. It doesn't need it.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message. And another message there you talked about, which I know that you do really, really well at the University of Salford, is thinking about the health and well-being of the people that are engaging with the experiences as well. And Bev, I think this is probably a really good time now to then go into this experience, because I think you talk, or you have done, about how to use avatars appropriately, but also the importance of the safety and well-being of the people that are engaging with it, in case it might be triggering, in case there's any kind of ethical concerns there. So do you want to just start by taking us through this example? Because we've got two really nice contrasts, haven't we? We've got the real world examples and then a simulation, which is about captivating the imagination and taking us to a whole new place.
Yeah. So this is our sort of a simulation that we did, and it was all about sort of like, and this is actually for mature students. So it's not for your undergrads, it's for the mature students, and it was going out about decision making and multidisciplinary team working, so the MDT, which is quite important. But what we do when we do any simulation like this is we would brief the students first. So we would brief them and tell them, if you find anything uncomfortable, just let us know. You're going to have a facilitator with you. And this was one where people were working in groups around PCs and discussing things as they were going along. But these are already practitioners, yes? So it wasn't as taxing for them as possibly it could be for an undergraduate, a pre-registration student. But we always adhere to the good simulation practice of briefing, then the simulation, then a debriefing, just to check whether everybody's okay, but also then to lead into the facilitated discussion where the learning happens, where everybody starts discussing. And we got some really good discussions out of this with the cohort, who were all discussing different aspects, bringing up things that even though I'd designed the scenario along with my my fellow academics in ultrasound department, even I hadn't thought of, and they were bringing up aspects, and I was thinking, oh gosh, yes, I hadn't even thought of that, but you're right, that's a really good point. So we go through this. This was actually embedded in our virtual sort of sim centre that we have, which is called Burley Place, that was developed by Dr. Leah Green. And they learn a little bit about the character first in Burley Place. They've got a bit of reading to do, and then they click on the link and they come to this, and then they can proceed through, and they've got decisions to make. So here we used AI to create images. So Leah's a whiz with creating AI images, and she was all over that. So we want a clinic environment, so one where they're going to start clicking around, but we want them to hear sort of like a consultation. So where the resources were here, where we were getting we were using Teams to create audio of our conversations that we were having, and then we were setting them to an AI avatar, but also putting the transcript there as well, so that the students could read through. So again, with the multimedia, we were asking them to meet people. So with your simulation, we were trying to create sort of like an emotional investment by giving you some sort of autobiographical information about the characters that we're putting into this simulation. And we were using AI generated images for that. So we were doing all sorts of different things for that. But yeah, as you can see, the image is AI.
So just to give us a kind of, not an idiot's guide, but the kind of the process here. So Georgie Betts is obviously a patient, and the idea is that you're enabling the learners to cover all the points if they were going to make an assessment whether to admit Georgie, whether she had an ectopic pregnancy. Is that right?
Yeah, we're looking at it from a diagnostic point of view. So we're looking at it from a pathway point of view. We want them to think about the pathways, not just as a practitioner do the task that you're doing. I am just doing an ultrasound. We want you to think about what effect that might have on the patient as they go through the diagnostic pathway. So, you know, we were giving them things like ultrasound reports that maybe aren't written quite as well as they could be, and asking them to evaluate things like that, or evaluate the professional behaviours of people that they would be able to think about then when they were interacting with patients. Yeah, is this a good professional interaction? Or has somebody made a judgment? Whereas, you know, if you hadn't made that judgment, would you have served the patient better? And you can see sort of like our people, and we were giving them a little bit of information like, this person might be, you know, is in a clinic, but they are, you know, it's a very busy clinic and they're already behind. So, you know, things like that.
And as we go through it, I know that you might not be able to hear it all, but there's lots of like audio that's in there. There's the transcript that's available. So again, it's different modes of engaging with the information. So you've got the video, you've got the text, you've got every single way that you can think of to actually engage with that information. And then once you go through, you've got the ultrasound report that people can click on then and go through. And as you go through further, then you get to hear the actual phone call.
Hi, it's Alex, one of the junior doctors down in A&E. I have a patient that I would like your opinion on, please. I'm thinking I need to admit her.
Hi, yes, it's Hannah the Reg. Admit someone, that's bad news, certainly from my point of view anyway. We're a bit full on the GAU ward at the minute. Anyway, go ahead.
So it goes through the story, and then where do you go next? You click proceed. So yeah, you've got the proceed button. So do you accept this? So you're creating branching pathways based on making a decision to accept that patient because it's proportionate, or reject them and admit them for further observation. This is life-changing stuff, isn't it? Because the wrong decision here could impact and have ripples that are just immeasurable in terms of the impact for that patient, the hospital, the people involved. So where would I go next? Would I accept or would I reject?
You can go either, but accept if you want to. Yeah, we had lots of different little permutations going on. So now you get to read something about what the admission notes are and you know what's happening with the patient, and then you can proceed again.
So you actually, I don't know if people got that, but you actually use the transit tag to turn the page of the report, which is just lovely. So creative. And then you've got another page of this, which is more information, but you've actually then got somebody who's saying, I'll do the scan, but I've got one slot available. That's fine. Just send her down, which obviously seems quite slapdash. And then can you talk us through this bit, the biography of the doctor?
Yeah, so we like I say, we wanted to sort of like get that emotional involvement. So we were giving people background as we were going along, you know, so that they had a feeling of why that person might make that decision. And then we could bring that out in the facilitation where we would say, right, yeah, so do you think the decisions were influenced by their surroundings or by their environment? How do you feel that if that happened to you, you could overcome that if you were in a very busy environment and that distracted you to such an extent? What do you think you could do about it? And then we would be talking in the facilitation, about strategies that the students could take back and use in the clinical environment. And now here we're sort of like in the room where there's going to be an ultrasound scan, just to give the students an idea of, sense of place, where things are happening. Yeah, so that's just using one of our rooms in the medical imaging centre. And again, you'll get people, you can click and listen to the conversations or read what they're saying. Yeah. And then just move around the room and just keep exploring.
That's amazing, because that's really enabling you to identify different types of bias. Yeah, if you had a course on bias and you went through it in a really kind of static way, it would actually become a little bit stale. It would become a little bit boring. You might be at risk of people going click, click, click and not having that opportunity to actually explore what's behind the bias. Because you do bias as a kind of general course, don't you, on most courses?
Oh,
Dee,
yeah.
I can see you nodding away there.
am.
I was desperate to come in. Isn't it such a great example?
I love this example. I also love the fact, Bevan, maybe walk me through, because I love that you use a facilitator for this specifically, because I think if somebody were clicking through this and going through the bios, they wouldn't necessarily be paying attention to that. So can you walk me through a little bit about the thought process of doing this in a facilitated environment versus just self-paced learning?
Yeah, so we preferred the facilitated environment for this, so that we could sort of like answer questions, but also prompt students, if they were sort of like getting too involved in, say, the background story and not really paying attention to the decisions that they were making. So the facilitator is useful to keep students on track, to keep them within what you want them to learn, within the intended learning outcomes. What we always start with when we're trying to plan these things is our intended learning outcomes. What do we want the students to know at the end of it? Like I say, sometimes they come up with different aspects that we haven't thought of, and that's brilliant. But, at the end of the day, we would like them to talk about, the intended learning outcomes and go away knowing what we wanted them to know.
I love that. I think thank you for the shout out there, but the planning phase is so important, especially in a storytelling environment. So starting with what's the outcome and then going into the story. This is a great example. I also love that it is a scenario-based learning example. So they are able to understand, if I do make the wrong decision, what happens? What's the real world consequence from that as well?
Yeah,
it's absolutely fantastic. And, we talk, even in nursery schools, we talk about fail and fix. You kind of have a problem, you can't tie your shoelace, you have to learn to tie your shoelace, or not get through a cupboard or something like that. But this failure-based learning and the opportunity to go back and to reflect and see how decisions have such far-reaching impacts, but it's okay, it's a safe environment. You know, is there a way to reclaim the situation? Actually, there's not in these circumstances, because it's just so serious. It's just such a really nice way to handhold students through education, which is going to impact on their whole future careers.
Yeah, and I found the branching scenarios very useful for getting to those conclusions, where they were then shown at the end of this. I think we show sort of like impacts on Georgia. So this is our MDT meeting, where like we've got again examples of bias, you know, so the doctors that are making decisions are biased. One of them is very interested in the research project, for example. So they rush the patient into this because they want to, you know, have the research project populated by patients, you know, and wasn't necessarily the right decision for the patient. And we got to the end of it, and you hear from Georgie saying, well, you know, I ended up with an ovary removed, and you know, it's going to affect my future fertility and things like this. And you know, to hit that home about the future impact, all about learning about pathway. So the branching scenarios are really good for learning about patient pathway.
Amazing. I can't believe the time is ticking, and we're coming through to the last 10 minutes, and we could talk about this all day, because what you're doing is absolutely inspirational. But I know that there's other examples at the University of Salford, and I'm going to ask Mo. Mo, we've got about 8 minutes or so left. Is there any other examples that you really want to highlight? I know we've got a list, and we're going to email it out to everybody. So if you are watching this and you hadn't signed up for it, go back and sign up for it, because you'll get the email with all of the links, etc. But is there anything that you want to shine a light on, Mo?
Yeah, so yes, we discussed quite a few examples, and like I mentioned previously, myself and Dennis have seen so many different type of examples coming out of the health school. I can't not mention that Dennis created with Dr. Leah Green. That's probably one of the first projects that really inspired a lot of people, especially around the use of generative AI as well, because we do use the feature within ThingLink, Skybox, which has been fantastic. And, you know, if you get a chance to have a look at it, please do. It's just a very haunting experience overall. Yes, the other experiences as well. So we have sepsis at the seaside as well, and it's a completely different experience. Once again, it's more of a storybook feature this time. This was created by one of our academics as well, Maria Taylor, from the same school, and it's telling the story about a student nurse who goes on holiday, contracts sepsis at the seaside, and you get to decide how that situation maps out for that student as well. So a really great way of using video and Gen AI once again in a really nice way. And yeah, there's some other examples as well. So one of which is created by Ollie Hudson, as well as Vanessa Malone and Henry Arden. And this depicts a day in the life of a nurse working in the ward, and you have a supervisor there with you along the way. And again, another really innovative way of using ThingLink through videos of a supervisor talking to you, getting to access hospital records via a computer. And this is just an example I've only seen really in the last few days. But again, this is a really inspirational piece.
And people can explore these at their own leisure. You've made them available to everyone, which I think is great. You know, open education. If other universities can be inspired by them, I'm sure they will be using them as well. A couple of other things, Dee, we've got another webinar coming up as well. Do you want to tell people about the webinar that we've got coming up in a short while?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is coming up in just a couple of weeks here, actually, or a few weeks. I say a few weeks, in September, correct? And excuse me, I'm getting my webinars confused, but yeah, it's coming up, and we're going to be chatting about using your authentic learning assets to create ThingLink. So moving beyond that passive learning experience and jumping into that really interactive, immersive experience using the ThingLink platform and your real world assets.
And what we wanted to focus on that webinar is that we know that people have got courses already. So, you know, they've got things that they've worked on. They won't want to lose that. They might have used other platforms. But what we want to say is it's really okay to create new assets like Bev has done and then embed them into your existing courses, because it's not about either or. It's about bringing, you know, lots of different types of information in together. So we'll be having a look at that on that webinar. But also, I know that Salford has a conference coming up, and I don't know if Mo or Dennis, do you want to talk a little bit more about this? We'd love it if other people were able to come along. It's open, free of charge to anyone in the public sector. I know we're going to be having a stand there as well, so people can come and speak to myself in person. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to add about this? Is that for Mo?
I'm afraid I don't really know much about this conference, unfortunately. Dennis, do you know anything?
You mean the festival?
No,
Not our LTEC festival.
That's another festival that you've got on, but this
right.
is the AI in Healthcare conference that Lee is going to be putting on. Bev, do you know anything about this? There's too many conferences going on.
There's too many conferences going on. No, I've not spoken to Leah about that. No, sorry.
Well, I've put the link to this in the webinar slides so that people will be able to find out more about it. But I know it's on the 9th of October, I think it is. And it's at the Adelphi House, and it's going to be all about the use of AI in healthcare, and it's available and open free of charge to any public sector delegates. So we hope that you, if you're able to go to that you'll get in touch with Leah at the university. So I think that's coming up to the end of our time now. We do have another webinar, which you might be interested in, which is on September the 10th. And I'm calling it To Cupboard to Classroom, because we know that schools have bought VR headsets and sometimes they can sit languishing in the cupboard. There might have been a bit of an impulse purchase, a bit of resource at the end of the year and budget left over. But we really want to show you how to get the most out of that headset. It is open to schools, but it's also open to anybody watching. So if you want to come along to that webinar, you are more than welcome, and all the slides will be in there. So I just want to bring this to a close now, firstly by thanking everybody that's joined us. I mean, it's been great to hear your comments and your ideas as well. But over to you guys as well. Bev, is there anything that you want to mention or highlight as we bring this webinar to a close?
Just to say thank you to all my colleagues who have, been so very helpful to me while I've been learning how to use ThingLink and producing all these ThingLinks. It takes a village actually around you, and I do appreciate everybody at LTEC and my technicians and all the rest of it. Absolutely fantastic support, especially Dr. Leah Green. Thank you.
And over to Mo and Den, is there anything else that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, just keep on doing what you're doing. You know, the way that ThingLink has been getting used throughout the University of Salford, throughout all of our 4 schools, has just been incredible. And, so much has been created in such a small amount of time. So I'm just very excited to see, A, what ThingLink can offer in the future, and B, what people are going to be carrying on creating and, letting their students experience. Because this is the other thing as well. We've seen really good examples of how ThingLinks are being created by students, because our students are able to do that as well as academics. So we're seeing examples of how ThingLink is being used for formative assessment, for example, and students creating ThingLink and getting their hands on technologies to create, what they've learned and to prove that. And, it's been really good feedback on both sides.
Thanks, Mo. Den?
Yeah, I think, just to echo what Manisha said is, have a go. I think the first time I used ThingLink for something was I ThingLinked Mo's wedding. And it was just, to get used to the, how everything fits together, to transition from one part of that wedding to another, to highlight people, to add different media to it. So it doesn't, when you're learning, play with it, because it's a great tool to play with. And I think that gives you that basics, starting point to create some amazing things like Bev has.
Amazing. Dee, thank you so much for being my wonderful teammate and colleague and co-host for this webinar. It's just so brilliant, isn't it, to see these examples come to life. We couldn't dream of these examples being so good.
They're so great. And thank you all for putting them together so that we could showcase it and showcase the the ThingLink tools as well.
So all that's left to say is thank you so much, Bev, to Mo, to Den, and all of you joining us. Thank you so much. Have a safe journey home if you're heading home. If you're watching on the catch-up, we really hope that you're going to engage in other webinars and you'll get all the resources as well. So thank you very, very much. Enjoy the rest of the summer, everyone, what's left of it. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. So it's a big goodbye from me and the entire ThingLink team. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.